You're listening to The Courage to Live, a grief podcast hosted by the Child Neurology Foundation. Together, we're building a community for parents, caregivers, and all those who walk with the pain of losing a loved one to complex healthcare needs. We invite you to connect with us along your journey. You're not alone, and your child's story continues through you.
Good evening. I'm Brad Thompson with the Child Neurology Foundation, and I am honored to get to moderate I guess it's our second podcast, but it's our first podcast with a guest. And so I'm super excited about that guest who I will introduce in just a second. I am thrilled to get to co-moderate this because no one leaves Brad Thompson unchaperoned. And so I am very thankful that Courtney Collins, one of our grief ambassadors for Child Neurology Foundation, is sharing this time with us as well. I want whoever listens to this to know that we understand that we are walking in a sacred space, a delicate space. And if you find yourself in one of those emotional positions as you're listening, I want you to know it is okay. Just turn it off. Put a pause, bookmark it, and come back. Reach out to one of us for a life-on-life conversation. All of those things are okay, and it's why we're doing this to begin with. So as I sit on the edge of my seat because I'm anxious and doing all of these things, I want you to sit back in your seat and just take it in and see what connects. And at any point, please feel free to pause, to breathe, and to come back later. Tonight, we're going to talk about the early stages of grief, the early days, and what happens, and the things that feel forced and have to be done, and in the midst of navigating all the details, still having the emotions that are raw and all of those things. And I am blessed to have Courtney and our new friend, Tiffany Townsend, to just talk about that. I asked Tiffany to send us a little bit of a biography to kind of introduce her, and so I'm going to share that with you. Tiffany's an author, a wife, and mother of three who shares a faith-rooted message of hope for families navigating autism, epilepsy, and profound loss. As a grieving mother, Tiffany honors the life and legacy of her son, Jacorey, whose journey included an autism diagnosis at age 3 and a seizure disorder at age 14. Raised amid rural disparities and limited access to resources, Jacorey broke barriers throughout his life, leaving behind a powerful story of perseverance that Tiffany now carries forward with great purpose and does it with great passion and grace, I think. Tiffany's the author of a few books, Challenging the Spectrum, God Has the Final Say, A Real Life Guide to Advocacy, Faith, and then Trusting God Has the Final Say, where she transforms hard-earned hindsight into guidance for other caregivers navigating the unknown. Tiffany, thanks for joining us. Yeah. And thanks for being willing to be with us and to share your story and your experience. If you didn't see the introductory podcast, you may or may not know I have not been where you two ladies are. And so while I can kind of guide the conversation, the experience that any listener wants to hear is really yours. And so I am hoping that as I throw things out there, the two of you will do what you do and share thoughts and feelings. I can assume that the first feeling, if it's a feeling that you have when your child has passed, is shock. And in those moments, what do you do with that? How did you experience that?
Well, I really didn't know what I was feeling. I was just, warm all over and just felt like I couldn't breathe. And it was actually a paramedic that was at the scene, who told me that it was perfectly normal, the things that I was feeling, because it was called shock. And it was perfectly normal for me to be in shock, being that I had just lost a loved one. And that was just lost my son. And that was even kind of the introduction to me actually knowing that my son had actually passed away. And so just having that feeling of just shock and, just feeling like, man, I feel I'm gonna die. I can't breathe, what's going on with my body. And I think that in a sense scared me because in my mind, I was feeling in the back of my mind like, I'm gonna die. If I don't get this under control, I'm gonna die. And I need to figure out at this scene, right, of what's going on with my son. What are they talking about doing to them? Because at that point, they started referring to him as a body. And I'm like, yeah, they have to get the body and take the body. I'm like, wait, how do we get here? And so I couldn't, the shock was there, but I had to quickly um try to maintain it and not be overtaken by that, just because as a caregiver for and like you said in my intro, my son was diagnosed with autism at 3 and then a seizure disorder at 14. So I feel like I even kind of had been programmed to suppress emotions as they come when it comes to trying to deal with things for my son and me making a rational, decision. Those things that I had been trained to do all of those years and all of the things that we had been through actually came into play at that moment when I needed it most.
You had practiced that
Right.
before. It wasn't
Hmm.
it's the hardest thing you've ever done, but it wasn't the first hard thing
Right.
you've ever done. And
Right. Right.
I man, you touch on something as a caregiver that really strikes me is how many times in his life and your life, uh, you have to set all your emotions aside and or stuff them down or however you want to describe it to
Right.
get through the moment.
Right.
Uh, but then all those emotions are still there.
Right.
But they
Yeah.
talk about fight or flight, and I knew about fight or flight. I'm Tiffany, I know that you know this too. Like when Lucas would have a seizure, one that he would eventually come out of, you go into fight. Like immediately, I'm like, okay, I know the protocol, I know what to do. Um, I was, our whole family, we were very calm when Lucas would have seizures. Um, when he had them at school and people would call me and they're frantic and panicking, I'm the one that says, okay, can you please make sure, fill in the blank, fill in the blank, fill in the blank.
Mhm.
Right.
This is what you need to do next. This is what comes next.
Right.
These are the questions you need to answer for the paramedics that are on their way.
Right.
And then when those paramedics are in your home, and I remember early, I mean, in the first 30 minutes that we found Lucas, trying to resuscitate him because I couldn't, in my mind, I could not make it make sense that this was it, that that he wasn't coming. Like it didn't, that was not even a thought in my mind. I was begging the Lord, not yet, not
Right.
right now.
Right.
Mhm.
So I'm doing what I
Mhm.
can to
Hmm.
bring him back because he
Right.
always came back. There was never a time before that it had been the last episode or seizure that he had had. And so it's this whole new level.
Yeah, my sister started to cry when she came to the scene. She started to cry when they said that he had passed, and I was like, "No." I said, "You cannot." And this is my twin sister, by the way, and so I know that she was feeling every emotion that I was feeling, and I said, "You cannot cry. If you cry, I will lose it. I have a job to do.
Yeah.
My
Mm.
son is expecting me to perform as I always have at this moment, and I have to do it, and we can't cry.
Yeah.
Mm.
We can't
Yep.
Mm.
we can't cry, not right now." And
Yeah.
so I kinda set the tone for that. I set the tone for, at the house, at the scene, until his body, and stuff was taken away. Just like, we just can't do that, and it was, looking out now and looking back, it was just like you said, you have to be the calm one. You have to take control when others don't know what to do. And because, of that, and Courtney, I say, as being a parent of a kid that have seizures, we have, and I'm speaking just for moms, it seems like we have died 1,000 deaths
That's right.
watching that happen
Mm.
because it's so heartbreaking, but it's nothing you can do. It's out of your control.
Absolutely.
And so you have to just let it, and so
Yep.
you kind of have to go back to those familiar things and let it,
Yep.
right?
Mm.
Yep.
So that's what I kind of kicked back to during that moment, and it helped.
I'll agree.
Mm. So you said something, and both of you kind of said it, that you go into control mode. I have to. I'm the one who does this, right? And 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 in my mind, what that means is I put my emotional triggers to the side so everyone else gets to process the emotion as it comes and as they see fit, and you're left to wait till later.
Yeah, that's what we practiced
Yep.
for years.
Yeah.
And so
That's
then
true.
when you do that, and now this is just my inquisitive mind, right? Because I sit in this space a lot. When you're in that space, um, where do you get to have the emotion? Where do you get to give yourself? Because you said just a minute ago, Tip, you don't get to cry right now. So when do you get to?
For me, um, I started writing my book, um, I guess a little over 6 months before my son died. I guess about 9 months after my son had died, I started writing this book, and that was redemption for me. Because when I got to the end, and I really didn't want to get to the end and write about the last day, and I kept telling my sister and even my writing coach, I'm like, I don't want to relive that day. I don't want to go back to those emotions. But what I realized is I never lived in that moment. I
Mm,
couldn't. And
yeah.
so then I had to write it. And of course, writing, you have to get all of those emotions out. And so that's where I actually came to grips and could actually let out those emotions of reliving that moment and talking about it and describing it over again, in my book. And it was actually redemption for me because I finally was able to process it, right, from another angle, from this is what was happening then, and tell that story and relive those feelings, and that's what I did.
What would you say to people who don't write?
Processing those times, when it comes, right? When it comes, of letting it happen. One of the biggest things, Brad, and I know I had this conversation before, was when I would cry, it felt like my nervous system was going crazy. I was feeling all of these like fireworks going off, and I'm like, again, I don't know what's happening to my body when this happened. This grief is so, this sorrow is so strong that if I if I don't halfen this up or take it a little bit as it come, again, it was for me. I'm not going to survive this, even when the moments come. And so I had to try to figure out, how do I get this in little increments so that it doesn't overwhelm me and you know, it doesn't take me. And I guess our bodies, that fight or flight, it's a protection mechanism. And I learned something during this whole process of grief is that our bodies actually protect us. It's like an engine overheating,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I can tell just from my nervous system that my body is protecting me from the whole, from everything, right? Just a little bit because the engine starts to overheat and then I have to calm down and let it go back down. And so that's my body has actually protected me in such a way that I am grateful for, and then I think about, God designed us in such a way, right, that we can't be, overtaken. Right. And so those are the things that I just feel grateful for during this time. That's one of the things that I found out that I didn't know about. I didn't know how the body protect us. And then when you start thinking spiritually, it's almost like, what lives inside of you, right? You have the Holy Spirit living inside of you. And it almost made my shock seem different because I get hot. And it's like maybe the Holy Spirit is activating during that time. That's what that heat is. And it's protecting me from being so taken over emotionally.
I can say for me at the beginning, I don't do feelings. I'm not a feelings kind of lady. And it served me so well for so many seasons of Lucas's life. Um, but it made the grief and the how to function day in and day out a lot harder because I didn't want to feel the feelings. I also am a recovered alcoholic and I don't use anything to numb myself. There is no numbing. There is just full on feelings that I don't want. And I agree with Tiffany that it does help to learn what your body is doing so that you can do it in increments. But at the beginning, you don't know what that feels like. And so for me, I think even up until probably just several months ago, which we are just about to reach 1 year without Lucas, and it's taken a long time. And I want to encourage moms or dads that are listening, there's not a right timeline for this. And what works for Tiffany is beautiful and right for her. And the Lord is providing that. What works for me doesn't look like Tiffany's, and that's okay too. And for me, it was and still is climbing into my son's bed where he died. I still have all of the things that were in his bed when he passed away. They've been cleaned, which I was really mad about for a long time, by the way. That's a whole other side. Our brains are weird, y'all, when we are grieving the loss. But I locked the door. I shut myself in there and I can say whatever it is I need to say. It's not pretty and it's not magical and it doesn't look like a movie. It's not Hallmark. It's ugly and it's raw and it's real. And I cry into his big stuffed bluey. Um, that's where I cry. And I sit in his space that I am now. It's the most comfortable and safest place for me to grieve the loudest. And so I think while you're learning what grief is going to look like for you, find somewhere safe, um, somewhere where you can be with yourself to figure that out because I might scare people if they were to see it. So I'm just going to say.
I think that's such a great word, Courtney, that we find our space and our rhythm even. And that kind of leads me to another thing, and that is y'all are both married and you have other children. And so you have multiple rhythms of grief under the same roof. How do you navigate that, especially in those early stages, early days when we still have to figure out how to eat lunch today, or what did that look like in your house?
I think for me early on, I couldn't do it. I could not, I couldn't comfort I have 3 daughters, his big sisters, and I couldn't comfort them in their grief. If it was outside of snuggling, I had no bandwidth for it, and that is okay. It's okay. Thankfully, I'm so grateful that we have very close friends who loved Lucas deeply and were facing their own grief, but were able to step into that space and love my girls where they were at. And since then, our home, we have kind of learned, I'm learning what they're grief looks like in a physical way. When certain things start to happen, I'm like, I think the bottom of that is grief. And so you learn those things. But I think early on, it's okay if all you can do is hold your other children. If all you can do is cry with them, that's good. They need to see that so that they have an example of it. These feelings are okay. And being sad and upset and mad, these are okay.
Yeah. That looks like permission, right?
Right.
Looks like permission.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when your husbands don't do it like you do it, Tiffany, how do you handle that?
Well, they have they have this book, I guess they say, men are for Mars and women are for Venus. And it's just so
I
true.
think that's giving men a little too much credit,
And,
personally.
I mean, and it's just like, and
Really.
it looks so much different before my kids. I know Courtney kids are younger. I have adult kids. My daughter is now 32 and my younger son is 23. And so my daughter, who's the oldest, who was always kind of, when he was born, she was just kind of like, this is my baby. Right. And so she took him and cared for him, as, her baby all the way, and so her grief, it just kind of like, this is my baby, and so trying to help her deal with that, but also she's a big sissy of the whole family. So then she's worried about me as well. And
Mm.
so then I have to be strong or not show because I don't want her to worry about me. I need her just to try to, take care of her own grief and changing sceneries for us. I know Courtney said she goes in her sunroom. That's a safe space. I love changing sceneries because it feels like it's kind of easier because my son isn't supposed to be in Chicago with me, and so then that way I can just kind of, deal with that, outside of, you know, my home and outside of all of the things there. When he passed away, we chose to have him cremated, and so we have his urn here, and we also have like this jewelry. This ring has some remains in his fingerprints and stuff, and so everywhere I go, I have that with me. But my daughter was in China and she decided to move back to China because she felt that would be easier for her because he's not supposed to be in China. So she just will miss him on surface level like she does everyone that she missed. Of course she got there and found out that wasn't the case. But it was good it was good in those things. So I just try to be there and let them validate their feelings of what they're feeling and enjoy the memories that we have.
I think that's true too when it comes to like my husband. We just process things differently. And Lucas was his very best friend.
Mhm.
They were the only two dudes in the house, and now he doesn't have his buddy. Um, and his grief doesn't look like mine. It doesn't look like locking yourself in a room for an hour. His comes in different forms, and I'm going to be really honest. Sometimes I just have to ask, like, and it's a weird question to ask, but how are you doing with Lucas's death today? Like, um, or if things feel tense, um, not only am I praying for him, but also just checking in, just little touch points where he has to do the same thing with me because something that's really not a big deal will seem like a really big deal. And again, the base level, the core of that is I just want my baby. Nobody loves me like Lucas. Nobody hugs me like Lucas. And I miss that physically. But how do you put those things into words? And for a while at the beginning, you can't. And so there's so much to be said for having grace. Just as much as we want grace given to us, we need to be able to, and it's a large order, but giving grace and letting other people experience their grief the way they need to.
Yeah, I find that to be one of the great challenges in this journey. And I've said it, I don't know what that chapter looks like, but it seems like often the person who is grieving has to be the one who gives grace, not just in the family, but to well-meaning people who are trying to help us.
Yes, Brad.
Right.
Yes, Brett.
And
Yes.
and I spend a lot of time with those people trying to help them just just be just be present with people. You know that the greatest line ever created is going to do no good for Courtney or Tiffany in this moment. So just keep it, right? Just
That's
say
right.
it.
That's right.
And so but that kind of adds a layer because it's like you have to be on top of your game when you should be the one who's allowed to be a mess,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what's your word for that?
I don't know if I have a word for it, but I will say that when I first met Tiffany, it was on a Zoom call, a meeting, and hearing her talk about Coco, um, just I haven't ever been able to hug Tiffany, but I feel like like I know what it would feel like. Um, I'm gonna cry, because she knows me and I know her on a level that goes far beyond anything physical because her mama heart was ripped from her body just like mine. And there's a connection that happens. And that is why, even if it's challenging and even if we don't know where to look or we don't feel like we have any resources, that's why we're doing what we're doing
Mhm.
because other parents need to know they're seen and they're heard. Um, and we get it and we hate it for them, but we're not going to stop being available. I think it's really important to hear about other people's children and the
Mm,
fact that they are
mm,
living on in their parents and their siblings and the community that was around them.
Yeah, I joined a lot of SUDEP awareness groups online, and moms who's lost sons, these type of groups online, and it was just so many women who I felt like didn't have hope, and I'm like, I found myself comforting,
Mhm.
just comforting, and I'm like, okay, what do I do about this? What
Yeah.
do I do about this? Again, now I don't even feel like I have time to grieve, which is I'm used to putting myself last, as a mom, especially, as a caregiver, used to putting yourself last of trying to be there for everyone else. And all of my son coworkers and his friends and I have his social media accounts. And they were still a lot of them didn't know he passed and they would message and, "Hey, dude, how's it going?" It's gonna have to break everyone's heart over again. Um, and so I didn't for a long time, I just didn't have a time to grieve or to feel a certain type of way because I needed to be there for everyone else, and find the words and encourage them. And that did start encouraging me as I started encouraging others. One of the words, and I know Courtney says she asks, how's it doing? One of the words that it hurted me a lot when people asked me was, "How are you doing?" And my mom, bless her heart, she would just call me every morning at like 9 or 10, and she said, "I just want to see how you're doing today." That was a hard question because I didn't know how I was doing, and I didn't want to have to even think or try to get the words to say how I was feeling. It was hard. Like, I don't know how I'm doing, right? I don't know how to tell you that I don't know how I'm feeling, and you're forcing me to tap into feelings, Courtney, that we
Yeah.
don't
No, thank
have.
you.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
and we don't like. And so I didn't like that. And I had to call my sister and tell her to please have a conversation with my mom and tell her I know she loves me, but please stop calling me and asking me this. I cannot take another call of asking me this and forcing me to go into and the same with text messages, all of these things were, early on, it was just hard to put your feelings down, and to try to think of come up with the words of how you're feeling. It was hard for the, first couple of months. It was just hard.
And I can only imagine being your parents. You know that I hear grief people talk about grandparents grieving twice because they grieve for the child, but they also grieve for their babies.
Yes.
And because especially grandmothers, they still have that maternal instinct of I'm supposed to take care of you, Tiffany. And so I need to know how you're doing.
Yep.
It's my because that's how I know what to do for you is when I know how you're doing, right? And so but it kind of circles back around to that needing to have grace when you have nothing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And somehow finding it, right? Because you're still speaking to your mom, so I assume you're okay there. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
We were okay then. I just needed her not to
yeah,
ask me that over and over and over again
Mhm.
because and I know she meant well, Brad.
Yes.
Didn't
absolutely,
mean it.
yeah,
She didn't
yeah,
know what
yeah,
she lost her grandson and
yeah,
she wanted me to be, okay. So she was hurting for, the whole situation, but I couldn't, I couldn't take that. It was too
yeah.
much.
Yeah.
And
See,
she respected it and backed away from it.
I have a
So that,
feeling, yeah, I have a feeling you were nicer. At some point, I would have gotten sarcastic, and then a bunch of apologies would have been necessary, and yeah, all that stuff.
yeah, my response to all of that, my coworkers asked me a lot. I went back to work 2 weeks after Lucas passed away, and how are you doing? Was it's very sweet, but I would say I'm standing or I'm up and not crying, and that just had to be the response because literally that I was existing.
And I I I want you to know that that was putting the next healthy step forward, right? That was that was doing what you had the energy to do. We talk about milestones and all those. I think inch stones are sometimes underrated,
Yeah.
right? I can only imagine that I rolled out of bed today was a big deal. Anything that's looking back, anything that surprised you about your reactions in those first days or weeks after your son's passed?
For me, my son passed on Mother's Day weekend.
Oh,
And so it was Friday when he didn't wake up for work. And then, that Sunday was Mother's Day. And that Saturday, I mean, it was just like I had to make a decision that Sunday, was I going to participate in Mother's Day? And it was like my job as a mother it's like one of my biggest accolades in life. Being a good mom, to my kids. That's one of my shining stars. That's one of the things I hold up high that nobody could take from me. And so to have that happen during that time, I had to really just make a decision, was I gonna let, that and with numbness kind of comes into to play here that I went and participated in our family's Mother's Day festivities and just decided that I was going to keep going. This year when Mother's Day came was my second Mother's Day. I went to a woman's retreat for moms, and I just that's a decision I had to keep making, that this Mother's Day weekend is the anniversary of my son's death. It's what changed motherhood for me. How do I change it? And am I going to let, with that happen, is it going to be something, good or bad? And so it surprised me that early on that I made the decision to go and be around people and to celebrate the Mother's Day weekend, with my family, that weekend. And so I guess just the inner strength or, like I said, that numbness, it works as a security blanket.
it does. It does. Good. I love because I hear in both of y'all's stories so much giving permission in a time when in my work as a counselor, I hear a lot of especially moms who are always the party organizers,
Mhm.
the family gathering person that takes care of everything. And they have a hard time giving themselves permission to feel
Right.
and to experience, because no, there are people here, your child passed, and there are people here who need to be taken care of, and so that's what you do. And and hearing your story, I think, gives us permission to do what you would do, but then to feel how you need to feel, Courtney, and to experience it how you need to experience it. And I so that's what I want people who will watch this and hear it, is to hear the permission. I don't think we have permission to hurt people. We don't, but we have permission to experience this loss in the way that brings healing to us. Right. And so I hope people are hearing that as they watch you guys. Last question. What do you wish someone had told you during that first week?
Yeah, I got an answer.
I can't
And
wait.
this is
I think I
well,
know, but
this is my honest, this is my heart. Nothing. There is nothing that anyone could have said to me from February 9th until I don't even know. It was much longer than a week, Brad, there is nothing that would have helped. There is nothing that would have mended. There's nothing that would have stopped the tears or the anger or the frustration or the uh, disbelief. Nothing that anyone could have said, no matter how much I love that person, nothing would have helped. And I think it is innate within us. And I'm sure it's this. I mean, Tiffany and I literally have talked about this tonight. We practice this desire to serve others and to help others and to make sure other people are feeling comforted. And I remember comforting people who would cry on my shoulder. I just miss Lucas so bad. And I'm like, oh, bless it. I know
Yeah.
you miss him. And I'm like, it's my son. Like it doesn't compute in my brain. Especially looking back. But I just know that there's not anything that could have been said. And I try to remember that now in the space that we are in and getting to have the privilege of being with other families who are either dealing with anticipatory grief, their child is ill or is on the cusp of no longer being with us on earth, or they have just experienced it. The amount of doors that have opened since losing Lucas, it's astounding. But I know those moms in those moments because I am one of them. And so understanding that there's not going to be anything I can say, even though I've been there and I've done it, there's still nothing that I can say that's going to make any of it better, because you just can't. Nothing makes it better.
I just wanted y'all to say that. Okay. I just
Yeah.
wanted y'all to say. Tiffany, what would you add to that?
And I don't think it was, and I agree with Courtney on nothing to say. It's just revelations that I would have wanted during then that people, and just like Courtney said, some people try to go and be, you have to kind of comfort them, that
Mhm.
people will go on with their lives, that life will go on, even though you're grieving. People will go on physically. Life will go on for everyone. And I that was confused. It was just like,
Yeah.
don't y'all understand my son just died?
Yep.
Like, how can we have Mother's Day, even though I'm going to participate? How can how can life still go on as normal, and my son just died,
Yep.
and so and I wish I kind of had your words, Brad, that grief and happiness can coexist together, because you just have to figure out, because some people see you out and it's like, oh, she don't look like she's upset or crying to me. It's like, but that doesn't mean that I'm not, and so when we give ourselves permission to go places and do things and attend family functions and things, then we'll get criticized from another
Yeah.
point of view.
Yeah.
And so those are the things to where if you see someone that has went through a loss, and they are out and they are smiling, they are laughing, let them be.
Yeah.
It's taking everything that they have as a person
Yep.
and every angel ascended to hold them up to for them to participate and do those things. So
Yeah.
let it be. Surround them with love and, and prayer. And that's the only thing that I can say that you can do for someone that's going grief and you see them going on with life. It's not
Amen.
that they're going on without hurt and all of
Yeah.
these feelings of and still numbness and still shock. Right?
Yeah.
My biggest fear is that one day it'll hit me and I'll just scream to the top of my lungs but I think that's the enemy telling me that. Um, because it's okay. I do realize that my son is gone and I
Yeah.
can be, happy and, experience happiness and sorrow at the same time.
Yeah.
When you were saying that, it reminded me, one of my wife Karen's favorite sayings is, "What you think about me is none of my business."
That's right. That's
She
right.
just does not care what you think about her. And I don't live that freely. I wish I did, but I think it's good, right? You do what you need to do, and there are still good things happening in your lives and in your family's lives, and you should enjoy those. And yeah, they're never the same because there's an empty chair, there's an empty seat in the car, there's all the things, but they're still good for the
Yeah.
people who are there. Thank y'all. Any more profound last words that you would like to give me?
Well, while we're on this, while we're continuing this, giving permission, I want to say that I think that there is a standard that has been set that after a year, you should be better and you should have figured it all out. And so I'm just going to go ahead and pop that bubble right now. That is not true. That is a lie. I still hurt just like it was the same week that Lucas died. And when I cry, it is painful. And just like Tiffany said, my body, it does not feel like my body. My brain does weird things and it's still happening. It just
Yeah.
happened this last weekend. And so it's
Yeah.
okay. It
Yeah.
stinks and it's awful and I hate it for you, but you're not wrong. You're not doing it wrong. You're okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Yes. Courtney, as humans, we're always trying to figure out these formulas for things.
Yes.
Right. And so, so we take a book on grief and we make state, right, the denial stage, the anger stage, the bargaining stage, and as if we can make grief linear. And then we go, okay, well, a year will mean we've gone through all the days one time. So then it's good, right? And and no, right? It's just not. But humans are just trying to make sense of it. But then what it does is it makes those of us who on day 366 aren't all better ask, well, what's wrong with me? I
Yeah.
should be okay. What's wrong with me?
Yeah. No, I celebrated
Yeah.
that time at that year. I said this year is going to be the least amount of time that I've ever been without my son. Right?
Mm,
Because now
mm,
everything will be a year plus, right? And so this time it's the heart is only going to ache, more because it's longer. I'm going to miss him more. So
Yeah.
this year,
Yes.
yeah, this year is like, I'm going to celebrate this because this is going to be the shortest amount of time that I
That's so
ever
good, Tiffany. That's so good.
and so then now I'm at a year and 7 months without my son. I long for him more now because it's
Ah,
past that. So a year can't, because now you're dealing with a deeper longing, a deeper missing. And so all you can do is try to take that wisdom and say, I can miss and be sorrowful and I can be happy. And I could still, enjoy, my other kids and their milestones and my milestones in life and just continue to go on like that.
it's so good. That's
excellent.
Mhm.
so good.
Excellent. Well, ladies, I've never moderated a podcast before in my life, so it's easy for me to say this is the best one I've ever done.
Yay.
But I hope it's been as meaningful to everyone who listens to it as it has been for me. And I hope it's been a blessing to the two of you, to just be able to share your story and to continue the legacy of those sweet boys, Lucas and Jacorey. And so I guess I need to say something to close, like if there's anything we can do for you through the Willow and Wind Grief Ministry, please reach out to us. You can find us on Facebook on the Willow and Wind Grief page. You can find us through the Child Neurology Foundation. And Tiffany, if it's okay with you for us to post some of your contact information, even if it's an email address. So if people want to reach out to Tiffany,
My
you
book
can do
link,
that.
Challenging the Spectrum. God has a
Ooh, I
final
love
say.
it.
Yeah,
Love-
I love that. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for The Courage to Live, a grief podcast hosted by the Child Neurology Foundation, sponsored by BioCodex. Together, we're building a community for parents, caregivers, and all those who walk with the pain of losing a loved one to complex healthcare needs. We invite you to connect with us along your journey. You're not alone, and your child's story continues through you. More information available at childneurologyfoundation.org.